All right, another episode of the More To It podcast. I'm the host, Jay Moore, with Hail Varsity Magazine, hailvarsity.com. And this is my first basketball pod. I've done mini golf, obviously a lot of football, even done baseball with Darren Hurrdat. This is the first basketball one. And when you're going to do b-ball, you got to bring in the pride of Doland, South Dakota, Mr. Tim Miles. How you doing, buddy?
Jay, thanks for having me on. It's been a fun summer. I've gotten to know you a lot better, and we played golf a few times.
Yeah.
If people don't know, Jay's a very, very big deal out there on the golf circuit, so it's great to be out there on the course with him, and thanks for having me on your show. Yeah,
man. Thanks for taking the time. We're going to play golf here after we get done. You're Mr. Logo, by the way. I tried to wear a Whisper Rock shirt, but you come in here with the Cypress Point. Now, you've been to that place.
I've played 4 years in a row, so 2.5 days each time. I don't even know, like 13, 14 rounds probably on Cypress Point.
Holy smokes!
And I've had a chance to play courses like that.
Yeah. I mean, you.
That's the one thing. Division I college from a guy from Doland, South Dakota. And people, you've heard us talk about this before. Doland now has 106 people. Okay, it had 300 when I was there, and they weren't all me. But when you looked at all that. To be a Division I basketball coach has done more for my ability to get on great courses, Pine Valley, Augusta, Cypress. The joke is we don't play the publics, so that's why we're not going to Pinehurst, not going out to Bandon Dunes, but I have played Pebble Beach once and it was fun. But just all these really spectacular places, Oakmont several times, and Whisper Rock I've played actually too, and that's a tremendous. It's the best. It's the best frickin'
hang.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the best clubhouse in America.
So I didn't get a chance to hang. So I played it with Gary Barnett, the former coach of Colorado, who was a coach when I played against him, and he had to leave right away. I'm like,
that's too bad.
Bitch. Like I just want to go in here and have about 3-4 beers.
Yep. It's a cool hang.
Yeah, I know. The place is phenomenal. Favorite place? So would you rather play Cypress or Augusta?
Well, the water element you cannot replace. But so what's great about Augusta?
You played Augusta, what, 4 times?
Yeah, I played 6 rounds with Con Ostegard. Harold Anderson was our member, and so over 2 years, 6 rounds. So the thing about Augusta that's so cool is the back nine feels like it takes a half hour. Like you are so well. You know the course so well, every hole so well. Right. You're just, I know what to do here. Oh yeah, I know. Well. And I'll tell you one ironic story, because I'm no good, folks. Like, I'm your average Joe golfer.
Well, you started, how long, you just got into golf, kind of, right?
Yeah, like, I always played, but there was always, out of college, I always played. So I was 25, 26, 27, so a long time ago. But when you're the head basketball coach for 24 years, you kind of play spotty. And about the time you start playing, you get a text, Ronnie skipped class today. Like something's going on. Right. And so you're all aggravated. But the last 2 years, I've really practiced actually and done stuff. And so I've gotten better. But I got to be careful because my handicap doesn't always match what those other guys' handicap, so I lose my tail. So, it's just one of these things that when you play Augusta, literally it's like amazing because of the course so well. And the story I was going to tell you was so on 12 at Augusta National, if anybody remembers Jordan Spieth kind of hitting the ball in the creek on the right and then going over by 13 tee box and dropping and
chunking it in the water.
Guess who else did that? So literally I didn't want to re-tee because I had already it was the first time I played. I was nervous. I think I clunked 2 in the water, and the water runs away from me, and I hit a slice or a fade. So you're just asking for it. Just so you know, next time you see number 12 at Augusta National, which will be actually, I think, coming up
in a month, almost a month. Yeah.
So Nicholas always says, cut it off the left bunker, no matter where the pin is, especially on Sunday. And so that way you're hitting to the middle of the green, and there's no same thing as number 4 at Firethorn, by the way. Right. Just aim at Lewis's window over the pool and then cut it in there. So it's very similar. So I was tired of so I walk over and I dropped where Jordan Spieth did, and I literally shank it in the water again. So when I was watching that, my wife actually had walked in the room, and I said, "Honey, he's going to drop. I'm telling you, that's gnarly over there. And when he chunked it in there, I said, I did the same thing. It didn't cost me the Masters, but I did hit a good chunk.
Because I've heard, do they let you gamble on the golf course, or is it kind of like a hush-hush deal?
I've never gambled, never drank on that course.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, now you can have a drink later in the round or in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
They make a vodka lemonade that they do it with powdered sugar.
Yeah, you told me about this drink, yeah.
Well, and then Cyprus has one, dark rum, light rum. I think, one of the mixers, like not ginger ale, but soda water, and then they mix it in crushed ice and put powdered sugar on that. And you just like, it's crack cocaine. You're like, I'm just such a bad person. Can I have another one?
Right.
And you're trying to have some genteel to you and some manners, but all of those big courses always have kind of a unique drink, so to speak. Oakmont and Augusta both have. Well, Augusta calls it a transfusion. So when you're on the course, it's a virgin drink of grape juice.
So is it?
It's
ginger ale.
Ginger ale. Yeah. And then squirt of lime, and it's really tasty. And then they call it a confusion when they add vodka, and because you have two of them, you're confused.
Yeah. How the hell do you get a drink out there? Obviously, they don't have a bar cart girl driving around.
So there's in the cabins on the course. There's a very limited amount. I would say Oakmont has a huge industrial fridge full of Oakmont's a little more friendly to the boys. But so there's small, but a butler will come down and take care of you.
God.
Yeah,
somehow, some way. So who else? So you've played it. I had Dan Whitney, cable guy. He's played it on here. Who else? I feel like I had another.
Well, Frosty.
Well, yeah. I haven't got Frost yet.
Okay. He's hard to.
He's kind of a hard guy to get on here. Obviously a little busy.
I'll speak for him if he needs some help with the offense.
Oh, and I did Kevin Kugler, who's called the Masters.
So he's walked the grounds.
He's walked the grounds. He's called it. I mean, he's called it since I think 2008 for Westwood One.
What people don't realize about
2012, I maybe misspoken there.
Well, Kugler's overrated, so that's okay, and he knows it. But the interesting part about Augusta National, and let's just stay with Cypress Forest, which are two of the top three, and Pine Valley. So Pine Valley's hard, difficult.
It's very hard.
But the grounds are so spacious for those. If you've walked the grounds and just watch them, it's just amazing how the monstrosity of the lay of the land. They've got so much land.
Yeah, I went to the Masters year. Sergio won it. I went to Tuesday practice round, Thursday first round.
And so it's like and I don't think they did. They built it in the 20s and 30s, so they didn't do it. Thinking like, oh, we're gonna have these unbelievable crowds watching this great tournament. They just had the land. And what's funny is Cypress, which is a Mackenzie course done at the same time, Alistair Mackenzie at the same time, is a small piece of land. It's out on the point.
I've driven by it many times.
Yeah, and what's interesting with it is, you drive right by it. It's a 17-mile drive.
Right.
But it's really like if you go out to Prairie Club, it's got like a pines area for some holes, and then it's got a dunes where you're just playing in these sand dunes, and then you're out, unlike Prairie Club, you're out on the ocean.
Right.
And so where, Prairie has the pines and the dunes courses, you do have this kind of interesting, combination. And then I've also played Crystal Downs in Michigan, which is a Mackenzie course he did at a similar time after he completed, I think, Cypress, and called Crystal Downs. And that's the northern Michigan golf is much like Sand Hills, and you get over on Long Island. Yeah,
you don't hear much about
good.
it, but it's good because their season's only 4 months long.
They're like Minnesota.
Right.
That lakes area, Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota's great
so
golf.
much humidity.
I love going up to my wife with her job. We've been able to go up to the Brainerd, Minnesota area. And play
the Preserve.
The Classic at Madden.
Classic,
and then you have Deacon's Lodge.
Yeah, they're all great.
So good.
Yeah.
And you only got three months of golf, 4 months of golf. The turf is just perfect. The green joy is perfect.
If you can fight off the mosquitoes, you're doing just fine because the mosquitoes will carry away your golf.
Well, yeah, they can. They're like birds out there. Have you been watching the NBA playoffs, finals?
I have. And right away, obviously, like everybody, I was very unimpressed. And it was very, for me, my wife and I actually watched baseball. It was a little more calming because it was just so much histrionics. Like there was, there's political messages everywhere, which I understand. But it's the flashing of the stuff and the noise, and you're like, this is like it's almost weird. Aggravating.
Right. Yeah. I just tell, I watched a little bit just because I was so hungry for live sports. I'm like, this feels like a summer league game.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get into it.
They weren't prepared.
I haven't watched one game of the finals.
Yeah, well, Game 3, where Jimmy Butler went crazy, was a classic. Other than that, they tried hard last night, but, they're still limited with
the two
injuries.
best players in the NBA. I mean,
well, Bam played last night, but Adebayo. But, Spoelstra's done an amazing job. I just don't think they're going to be able to get to LeBron and Anthony Davis. There's so much size. Just look at the starters. You've got Caldwell Pope is like a 6'6" guy. You know what I mean? We played against him when he was at Georgia. We played him down in Charleston when I was here in like 14, I think. And he's a big, long dude that played like a combo forward, and now he's like their 2 guard. And then you've got LeBron at the wing, Anthony Davis at the 4, and then Dwight Howard's a monster, and he looks like a normal guy out there. And if you you're a big dude, but when you walk up to Dwight Howard, like he's a large human specimen. So that size remind me of some of those Kentucky teams that Calipari's had recently, which is so much length and size that's hard to deal with. He's got Karl Anthony Towns at the post and Anthony Davis at the 4, and he's got just these guys.
Oh gosh, you can go through all his. Point guards and wing.
NBA guy after NBA. Devin Booker's killing it right now. But so I have watched. It's been fun. Actually, I've been on a Zoom, different Zoom calls with Jeff Van Gundy.
Oh, really?
He kind of joined this group of ours, and it's been fun. So on occasion, he brought up pickleball one day, and so I texted him during the broadcast, like, "Have you played pickleball?" And he goes, "No. Is it fun?" I'm like, "Actually, it is."
Wait, who's all on the Zoom call?
So actually, the Athletic wrote about it. We're called the Motley Crew.
Okay.
It's like. So Porter Mosier, the head coach at Loyola Chicago, a whole bunch of Ivy League guys. So I am like the odd guy out, of course. I think that Van Gundy went from Harvard. He was accepted into Harvard and transferred to a junior college in California. He's like, explain that one to your mom. Mom, I'm leaving Harvard. I'm going to a JUCO.
Well, it seems like he'd fit more into the JUCO
he
than
did.
Harvard, obviously.
He went to Harvard and went, I can't do this. So Mike Martin's a tremendous coach at Brown University. Steve Donahue at Penn. How about Steve Donahue? So in basketball, just like in football, a lot of your non-conference games are bye games. So you pay a guarantee to somebody to come in and you expect to win, right? He has won 8 straight road bye games. Of course, they're all road games, but 8 straight bye games. University of Penn has won. That's an amazing number. Nobody does that. And so kudos to him. So he's on the call. And we'll just talk press breaker one day or whatever. We'll just talk all little different things. And now, once it got to about July, we quit doing them. And now as guys get closer, they start practice, they want to do them again. So that's been a lot of fun for me, but also a little bit bittersweet because I get all jacked up.
Then you're like,
and you got no team.
Right.
You're like, what do I do with it, man? Like, what the hell?
Well, has calling college basketball scratched that itch for you?
So no, because you got to have a horse in the race.
Yeah.
So I've done the TV thing, and it's helped a little bit. I've done the TV thing, like, okay, postseason, they send you out to New York City and you talk about the tournament, on CBS Sports, like that one, not the big CBS. I got the channel 335 CBS Sports. Okay, so that's great because you play teams and this, that, and everything. I'm still close enough where I feel like, okay, we played against Garza, we've had to guard him, we played against this guy, we played, so when I do a Big Ten game, so basically I'm an employee of Fox Sports, and I'm employed to do Fox games, some Big Ten and Big East games. And I've also told them, they just took the contract over for the Mountain West, and I was in the Mountain West for 5 years. And so Craig Smith was my assistant at Utah State's the head coach there. Nico Medved was my assistant, the head coach at Colorado State. I know the Wyoming guys. I actually looked into that job. So I know Jeff Linder very well. I know that just the whole group of coaches. Joe Scott was at at Denver when I was at Colorado State. He had left Air Force. Now he's back at Air Force. So I just DeMarlo Slocum and TJ Opson Heidecker. I never can say TJ is what I call him. The head coach at UNLV. Brian Dutcher is a good friend of mine at San Diego State. So my point is, I would love to do Mountain West games just because I know those coaches. I've competed in that league for 5 years, and being in the Big Ten for 7 years. So they've got me doing some Big Ten, but then they introduced me to the Big East, really. I knew Creighton, obviously. We played St. John's and Seton Hall. But, getting into those arenas, looking at those campuses, the first thing you realize is how small the campuses are. These are little schools. And that's what people don't realize about basketball when you look at football. Football has no one AAA. There's the 125 or so schools. There's a few more than that, I think, that are major schools. Well, basketball still has another, I'd say, 30 to 40 that are major schools, but AAA, no football. The Marquettes of the world, the Georgetowns, they may have some form of football, but not real football.
But it's 1AA or like FCS.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
Or it's that Patriot League stuff where they're like Division III football, really. So like Georgetown, I think, has got Division III football. And Marquette, I don't believe, has any. And Creighton obviously has none. And so Seton Hall, Providence, all those guys. And those guys some because we did the Gavitt games, which are the Big Ten versus the Big East. So I love calling the league games. Calling the non-conference games is about as fun as a fan watching it. Not so great. I enjoy the studio stuff, but you have to understand, you're sitting there in the studio, and if you're between games and one game runs long because they start fouling, you might have 5 segments prepared, and all of a sudden, 30 seconds before you're on the air, they're like, scratch A, B, and C, we're only doing D. And so you're on the air for like 38 seconds, and you got to whatever. And for me being well, you haven't even asked me a question yet. Like, okay,
right.
A quantitative guy, not a qualitative guy. Getting directly to a point is not my strength. So I've done a little better with that.
So you brought up, I had this question written down because we brought up the NBA, and I've had this discussion with guys just over beers, and it's just a fun question. If LeBron James plays on a Summit League team, does he get him to the Final Four?
I think he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. I've just never up close and so I saw him when he was 16. Okay, and I saw Zion play when he was 15, and so Zion, Roy Williams sat next to me because we do a coaches versus cancer. He's, hey Timmy, how you doing? In his southern drawl, I can't, whatever. And he's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I'm like, well. Okay, let me help. Let me just cut right to the chase. See Zion right there? That's the guy. Offer him. Okay, and he was like 15 at the time, and he was just this, just this kind of round-chested, like a belly.
Like a freak. Like he's a freak.
Yeah,
like
it's like you hate to say it, but he's like built like that turkey, that that butterball turkey.
He looks like a linebacker.
My fear is that he has a catastrophic injury because he's so explosive.
So violent.
Yes.
He plays so violently.
Yeah. We've seen him rip out a shoe. Right. Imagine, and knock on wood that nothing like that would happen. And but at the same time, when you saw LeBron, he's just such a physical specimen. It's just a different level. And I will tell you this, I truly do think that we're going to see eventually, it's going to come up. Well, I'm going to bring it up. The dimensions of the court need to change. I don't know that we lift the basket, but I think we need to make the floor a little wider, maybe a little longer, and move the 3 out, even in college, because the 3, we just moved it out a foot last year, but when I was still coaching, it was in, and the national average was 35%. So imagine that saying this: if you score inside the 20 in the red zone, or no, if you score outside the 20, of the red zone, that you get 10 points, not 7. I mean, it changes your offensive efficiency, like crazy. But it's not that hard to do. If 35% of the entire country, if your average is 35%, we already know that compared to the 2-point field goal, 33 makes it a 50% shooter. If you're a 50% shooter, you're a good shooter. You play basketball. You got recruited by St. Thomas and St. Paul, Minnesota.
Somewhere in Minnesota. I still got to find that letter. I asked you, I'm like...
There's one recruiting letter, folks.
One
for basketball. Yeah. So the point is that I do think the guys are almost outgrowing the court. And I don't know about raising... Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just don't tell people that's 9 a.m. No, it's not. And so it's noon somewhere. So, I truly think that is not in the unforeseeable future. And like you and I were talking before the cast, remember when you used to blow candles out on the birthday cake? Remember when the you could storm the court or storm the field, and we had fans. I mean, it was like, and now there's like, I remember when teams would get in trouble in football for taking the goalpost down. And certainly there is a dangerous element to some of that, but the schools are getting fined all this money. Now we're just trying to get 5,000 people at the game or whatever. And poor Nebraska fans not being able to go to the Husker games. I certainly hope the Big Ten revisits that as protocols improve. Now, you know, we're not in a good place as you and I talk today.
Right.
We're still rising in cases, you know, and so I don't know, but it's a weird time, man.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange time. I mean, what do you mean? These come out that Nebraska's going to host a little quote unquote bubble tournament.
A good bubble, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, thoughts on that?
Awesome, good for Fred and that administration. Whoever worked with him on that. I know my administrator was Mark Boehm. I forget the man that's there now that replaced him. I think he was the athletic director somewhere, but that's a really good tournament. Those are good teams. Northern Iowa's very good. Obviously, LSU, get her done.
Right.
And, I mean, there's going to be very good teams. And now with McGowan's getting eligible for Fred, that will really help that team. He's got a really talented 8-man group. And I think it'll be a much improved product than it was last year.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. He's putting a nice little deep squad together.
He is.
Yeah.
In fact, I am emailing Fox. I started to, and then I got distracted. Hey, let's broadcast this bad boy. You know, let's FS1. Let's get it on air because I don't believe any of those. You know how the rights are going to work on those things. I mean, I'm sure the conference has got to figure it out.
I would think so. And the Big Ten has ties. Well, football wise with.
Yeah,
Fox, but you think there'd be some.
Yeah, the Big Ten has contract with everybody.
Right.
Like,
correct.
I mean,
correct.
And that's great.
Right.
But when you look at things, so the basketball contracts, you have the Big Ten Network, and then you have Fox. Those are your two primary. In fact, you know, Fox owns 51% of the Big Ten Network.
Yes.
So then on the side contract, which is now a more limited number of limited inventory is what you call it, ESPN trimmed 33% that Fox picked up. And they put it on Big Fox, whatever channel 19 that is. Well, they have two of them. One's like bad SD, and then the other one is like HD.
Yeah.
And then they have like 1200, which is HD. So I get confused. That's Spectrum. So, but at the same time, Fox would be if the Big Ten Network chooses not to do it. But that would be a fun. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna sleep in my own bed. I won't cost you anything, except doing the games.
Right.
I'll do the games. I think that'd be a blast doing those games. If they let me in the bubble, I don't know. I'll get tested. I've been tested 5 times already.
You have?
Yeah.
How was that?
Painful. I don't like it. I only have so much brain up there anyway. I'll be poking it way up there with the swab.
So how does a guy from Doland, South Dakota become the 2014 Big Ten Coach of the Year?
Yeah.
I got. I mean, okay. So you go to school at U of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Yep.
In 2007, inducted in the Hall of Fame there.
Yeah. Well, they put my salary in the paper. Let's just put it that way. That's how I make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So then you go to Northern State.
Yep.
Recruiting coordinator.
I became an assistant there after a grad assistant year. 5 years as the assistant. And after sitting there second guessing my boss, who was the best all-time winningest coach there, I wanted to do my own thing, so I became the head coach at Mayville. And then we won at Mayville. And
you went 35-22, but the previous 2 seasons you were 4-44 there.
They were 4.
They were not you.
Yeah. I remember almost crying in front of our booster club at Mayville because we were 2-8, and I was literally like apologizing to these guys. And we had played, of the 10 games, we had played 8 Division II teams, lost to them all. And they were all on the road. They were all on the road too. And I remember just literally standing in front of these people like I'd failed them. Because you have to remember, we are at Northern. We played for the national championship game, lost at 34-2. National championship game 26-8, lost the national championship game 30-5, lost the national semifinal game. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to flip this and go big. And one of the old boys afterwards, because it's just a bunch of older gentlemen in Mayville, Portland, 2,000 people in the community. Coach, we're doing great. I figure we're going to win 6 this year, the guy says, and we ended up winning like 17 or 18.
We're there.
Yeah, exactly. They were great.
So then, Southwest Minnesota State, and obviously you go to North Dakota State, and then you talked about, what was it?
I became a Division I coach only by,
they
told you we're going Division I. They're like, I I was 7 months into it. Gene Taylor came in as our athletic director. Of course, Gene Taylor is now the athletic director at Kansas State. And he says, we're going to Division I, prepare for it. So we actually, because the state was so against it, there was actually legislation that they were trying to put in place to not even allow us to go Division I. And North Dakota, University of North Dakota, would not go at that time. So really, kind of behind the scenes, it was just South Dakota State and North Dakota State were going to go. Eventually, the other two Dakota schools came later, but it's really kind of set them both back. Both South Dakota State and North Dakota State, I think, established themselves early, and they've, like, both teams have beaten Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Both teams have, North Dakota's won 8 national championships. South Dakota State's very good. They've done an excellent job. In fact, I think we were due to play them down here this year in football.
Mm-hmm. It was
a game that kind of worried me, actually, because for Scott, because they're good. They're rock solid, just like what you saw in Wyoming a few years ago in Craig Bolt. Mm-hmm. All those, rock solid things are in place. So as you get to it, I think that we had to do a strategic plan. I mean, I worked on this I didn't even know what they were. SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you went through this whole thing. And I was an elementary ed major because I could do the math. All right, so that's the whole deal, right? And so when you look at it, it was really a meaningful process for me, even as I advanced in my career. But we were Division I independent for 3 years. That is no fun. Mm-hmm. Like, every game feels like an exhibition game, but we were fortunate. We absolutely nailed a recruiting class, and then we redshirted 17 out of 18 kids in my 3 years. That group eventually that redshirted only had one opportunity at the NCAA tournament, and they made it in 2000. And I was at CSU already, so I didn't get to enjoy it, but I watched it. Yep. And Ben Woodside got 38 on Sharon Collins from Kansas in a very good game in the Metrodome. Where there were 10,000 Bison fans. So awesome. It was really impressive. But the whole point was that was the first team to make it in their first year of eligibility since 1976. So in over 30 years. Close to 30 years, let's put it that way. And so that was really a feather in our hat. And now the fact they've made it, 3 or 4 times, they should have made it last year, they won the tournament. Right. They would have made it 4 times now since we were eligible in 2009. When you look at that 11-year run, that's pretty impressive. For that school that people told us that you can't go Division I, it's going to be such an awful move. So we had to go out and we had to sell it. We had to go to all these towns throughout the state. We worked through the extension agency, the ag guys, and set up meetings and stuff like that. And there were some people really against it. And I'll never forget, I was standing there. Craig Boland just got the job because Bob Babbage went to the NFL. Bob is now a linebacker coach with the Buffalo Bills. Gus Bradley, who's a good friend of mine, is the D coordinator now, former NFL head coach at Jacksonville. Very good coordinator. These were all guys that we, bunked around with. I always, and then Craig would stand there, and I would be like, "What are you doing?" He'd say, like, "We're going to win a national championship in 1AA." Back then we were 1AA. I don't know what they're the play FPS
it's or FCS football championship series. Yeah,
whatever, 1AA. Right. And he'd say, "We're going to win the 1AA championship," and I'd be like, I'd say to the wrestling coach who was just crude rude and what, and I'd say, "Is he full of shit or what?" And he's like, "God damn, I'm not saying that." What I mean? And he'd already won like 7 national championships in D2. Right. And so, but guess what? Craig was right. And I think that boldness, and I talked to Craig a lot about Tom Osborne before I ever met him, obviously, and we went 3 years together, and that kind of emboldened me to maybe dream bigger than I would have. And then actually we went out and played college. We were 20-8 my last year. We beat ranked teams on the first 2 ranked teams we ever played at North Dakota State. Were obviously both on the road, and we won them both.
Well, you beat Wisconsin.
When they were 13. It was only the 5th loss ever in the Kohl Center.
27. Sure, that was you broke their 20. They had a 27-game win streak against non-conference opponents.
Yeah, and Bo Ryan had only lost 3 times ever. It was Temple, John Cheney's last good Temple team in the Kohl Center, and he lost 1 conference game. And he'd been there for like 4 years. And so we really were, fired up, you know. And then the next year we beat Marquette at Marquette. That was Tom Crean and Jay Crowder and Jimmy Butler were not on that team. I was hoping I could lie my way into it, but I can't. But Wesley Matthews was. Lazar Hayward was. There were some NBA guys. And we beat them too. And but what's ironic about that team is we went 20-8 that second season, and we lost to Bobby Knight by 3 at Texas Tech, and then we lost at Colorado State 82-80, and they shot 39 free throws and we shot 8.
Ooh.
And so actually, one of the guys came up to me, one of the boosters, says, "You're going to be our next coach. I'm going to see to it." This little shit, you know what I mean? And I'm like, "Oh, okay, Tommy." And he introduced himself, right? So literally I become the head coach, and he's like, I told you, right? And then he was a thorn in my side for years, man. That guy was like a pain. And then, we built a 3 straight, we really, imagine this. So when I took the Colorado State job, we had 13 guys on scholarship. By the time we got to the school year, so I took it April 1st. Mm-hmm. Let me just give you a tip.
Okay.
Never take a job on April 1st. If it's April Fool's Day, don't do it. Okay. So second of all, by the time I got to August, 17th or whatever the first day of school was, 10 of those guys had either quit, 2 had committed felonies, 1 drunk driving, other not a felony. The other one guy pulled a gun on his teammate and then fired a gun into the couch. Right just 2 days ahead of when we were having 3 kids come on campus. I guess 2 of them canceled, And how we got the one on, was a minor miracle. And it was, one guy stole credit cards and IDs at a party and sold them back. And these are none of the guys I'd recruited yet because all 13 scholarships were accounted for. So, my wife just says, I'm not coming. Like, she's back there. I'm like, you got to. I love the kids. You got to. That worked. And so she finally grudgingly moved to Fort Collins, which was a tremendous place to live. And we finally righted it. But you have to imagine this. My second year, we went 4-12 in the league. Okay? Mm-hmm. And now that league, you have to remember, is BYU, Utah, San Diego State, New Mexico, UNLV, Wyoming, TCU. Did I add New Mexico yet? Colorado State, Air Force. So that's a good league.
Well,
you're not messing around.
The year you guys, there was 4 at-large bids.
We went 4 2 in a row.
Yeah.
The year after I left.
2012.
Yeah. We had more bids in my 5 years there than the Pac-12 did.
That's crazy.
It was a good league.
Yeah.
Alford, Steve Dutcher, Steve Fisher was so good. Mm-hmm. Lonnie Kruger was at UNLV.
Yeah. Forgot about him.
These guys are like, you just like every time you turn around, you're like, ooh, I didn't know if I was ready for this now, So, and then you got the Big Ten, these guys to deal with, right? And then the Big Ten's not enough. Add Nebraska, let's just add Maryland to the mix too. And, God dang it.
So Nebraska comes calling then. How does that situation play out for you? You guys, because, God, help me out. Who was you and the guy that came, the coach at Illinois? Who was he at before?
Well, John Gross was at Akron. No, at Ohio.
Yes,
University of Ohio.
Kind of, you guys were the 2 are kind of the
hot guys.
Yeah, the hot guys. Yeah. So he gets Illinois, you get Nebraska. Take me through that scenario of what's it like getting. Then all of a sudden you're like, you get a major conference.
Yeah.
Job coming for you.
So we got beat in the NCAA by Murray State, who somehow at 30-1, they lost their conference championship game, went from a 2 seed and all this stuff to a 6 seed.
Right.
And we were, I don't want to say, I thought we were doing it, I thought we were, I don't want to say clever, because that seems like, pompous, but I thought we were smart in the way we scheduled. We actually scheduled Omaha, who didn't count against us. And instead of taking another game, I just didn't schedule another game because I thought if we couldn't get anybody, good enough to come to our place, so now we're going to have to go to, let's just use Northern Iowa as an example, who's an exceptional mid-major. We're going to lose that game probably if you just look at the odds.
Right.
So that loss wouldn't do us any good, but not playing the game. So now our league was so good that our RPI was like 24 or 25 or 26 or something in the 20s.
Right.
Where if we played that other game, it might be 38 or 39. It only takes one game to slip 10, 12, 15 places in those numbers, even now with the way the net rankings are. And so we were an 11 seed. Thought we could have been a 10, but that's fine. I'd rather have been a 10. But a 6 seed, all of a sudden Murray State.
Right.
So they're clearly the best 6 seed. We're the worst 11, and so this isn't going to be fun. But we were ahead by 1.5. Come home, get a call. Hey, what about Mississippi State? What about this school? What about that? No, we're not going. What about? And he goes, well, 4 schools. Okay, what about Nebraska? I'm like, oh. I had spent time with the staff when Danny Nee was down here. Jeff Smith, especially, who was at Lincoln Southeast for a long time. Great guy, very smart coach. Gary Bargan was, down here too. I spent 2 days down here. Dana Trotsky's little brother, David Trotsky. Dana works for Mutual of Omaha. He's a local guy. He's out in Eagle at Woodland Hills, but does a lot of business in town. And his brother was one of my best friends, was down here working, who actually passed away in a car accident a few years later. But I came down. We went to a football game. It was Missouri. Here's what I'll tell you. Here's how Husker football hurts basketball. So it's 62-0 at halftime. It's just an ass whipping, right? So we go down and try and recruit St. Louis. Hey, where'd your parents go to college? Missouri. They're never going to let me go to Nebraska. There's good players all over. Hey, where'd your parents go to college? Lindenwood. The NAIA. Right. Oh, okay. Now I can recruit you. There's so many Missouri kids. They're just nope.
I hate Missouri. Yeah,
Kansas didn't care. Kansas State.
There's a little more, but Missouri just.
Yeah, Missouri was.
Listen, we played at Missouri my junior year, and we had a bad day. I think Brad Smith ran for 250 yards as a quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't he a quarterback?
Yeah. It was not a good day defensively. So and the Missouri fans are the worst. I was at the game where Davison makes his one and only catch of his career.
Yeah.
And
he wasn't even throwing it. First of all, he's not the intended target.
Right. And I'm an 8th grader walking out of there, and people are yelling obscenities at me, my dad, my mom, all this stuff. But
this is postgame.
You're
not walking off the field.
No, this is I'm as an 8th grader, right? And walking after that game because I'm there when they in '97.
Now I'm with
you. But then we go my junior year, where we just got done. We're sitting in the bus waiting to go to the airport, and these students come. They start pissing on our bus, and I almost got up. And then Jim Rose, who was calling our games, he goes, "Jay, it's not worth your time." Because I just wanted to go out and just...
Yeah, you have everything to lose.
Right.
They have nothing to lose.
And I'm just these mother...
Yeah.
I'm do they know? This is... And I just can't stand them. I hope they lose every goddamn game they play, and I'm glad they're getting their heads kicked in the SEC. It's even better.
That was a bad move. I think they wanted to be in the Big Ten, personally. I think they felt academically with the big journalism school, they fit in.
It's such a better fit.
It is. The SEC is
not way better fit.
We're still going to have more realignment. I can see, with the Summit League emerging the way it has in basketball and football, I can see the Valley. This is just me. What about the Valley football playing members and the Summit football playing members becoming the Valley? So where's Omaha go? Okay.
Right.
Well, Evansville. Where do they go? Where's Loyola Chicago go? The Horizon. So what you have is the Valley, the Summit, and the Horizon become 2 bigger leagues. That gives them, well, if you're the Valley, you're smart because I think it gives you a better contract with ESPN because you're an emerging mid-major in basketball. And the South Dakota State's done it well. North Dakota State's even won a game in the NCAA tournament, beat Oklahoma. And now you've got those good football teams too. I think you actually bring something to the table for a network like Fox Sports or ESPN, and there's reason to join, but then you got to eliminate some friends along the way. And then the Horizon League is one of those 1 AAAs, like we just talked about being the Big East. They're a non-football playing. You've got, I think, Oakland of Michigan in there, Wright State. Those guys are in there. Butler was in there for a long time, but then they moved on to the A-10 and the Big East. So now you've added Loyola. That's a good add. Omaha is a good. And again, it's all those places are like metropolitan areas. It's Milwaukee. It's Detroit. It's Dayton, Ohio. They're bigger communities like Omaha. So I think that we're going to see more changes like we've just seen the change in other schools.
Well, I think economically, just as what we're dealing with right now, and all these
there's going to be
hits,
contraction.
There's going to have to be people you got to make moves to try to get TV revenue somehow, some way. I mean, we've already seen Iowa cancel some sports. Nebraska luckily hadn't do anything like that yet, but you've seen major
Minnesota
Power 5,
3 main sports.
Yeah, you've seen major Power 5 conferences, cutting sports, and that's just, and that's in the Big Ten. I mean, that's just the Big Ten, but but then all of a sudden you get into the American Athletic Conference, you get into Conference USA, Mountain West.
Yeah, first of all, those schools are, when I was at North Dakota State, our president wanted to join the WAC because the WAC knew they were going to hemorrhage and lose people, and so they were trying to get anybody. And I said to our AD as we went around, we played Idaho when they were in the WAC, who's now in the Big Sky. We played some of these other schools, and I said, we're way closer to the Mountain West at North Dakota State than we are the WAC. So our goal should be actually the Missouri Valley. That's where, and those schools used to be part of the North Central Conference. The Drakes, I don't know if Creighton was, but Northern Iowa certainly was. We're all part of the old North Central in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so I just think there's going to be that geographical, contraction, so to speak, like you're saying. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's just, especially now, if you want to limit travel as much as possible. Now especially
for non-revenue sports, I'm sorry. The revenue's going to be less for the revenue teams. I don't think it's, God, this thing just keeps hanging around. This COVID just won't. Our transmissions are up here in Lancaster County, and so it's like, well, when am I going to get it? How many times am I going to get it?
Right.
What did I have it?
Right.
Whatever.
Who knows? So you get to Nebraska.
By the way, what I heard about COVID that I really liked? I want to share this with you. Everybody's a potential victim. Everybody's a potential suspect. It's the only way to look at it.
Yeah.
So, like, where did I get it? Like, some people feel shame that they got it or whatever. Everybody's a potential, victim. But, I got it from that guy. Should I be mad?
No.
How do you know you got it?
Right.
Like,
you don't know.
So I think we have to kind of accept this idea that it's part of us.
And maybe move on.
Yeah.
And,
I hear you on that, brother. I'm tired of it.
If everyone's going to get it,
COVID fatigue.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said I'm a little more incensed of this whole issue than some other people. So this is one question. So I had this conversation with.
So LeBron's in the Final Four because that was the last question you asked.
So you get to Nebraska, and obviously you have 2014 is you guys make the tournament, and first time since 97 or 98, 16 years.
16 years. I remember that.
But this is one.
Don't make me do math.
No, it's hard for me too. A lot of hits to the head. I had this. It wasn't with Bo. It was with Marvin Sanders, the DB coach. And so my last couple years playing professional football, I played in the UFL, Hawaii Nighthawks, with Joe Moglia and Joe. Joe, he's head coach that 1 year. And
so he's the TD Ameritrade guy that went on and built Coastal Carolina.
Correct.
Yep.
And he brought Marvin on staff for a year, and we're on a plane, and I think Nebraska just got beat by Wisconsin. It was the first year I think Nebraska was in the Big Ten. We just got talking about recruiting and the pressures of recruiting at a school like Nebraska, because Bo's taking over something. I was there with Solitz, Callahan, takes over from Callahan. He's trying to make it back to what it was, and that's such a hard thing to do. You feel the pressures of trying to do that, and you feel like you don't have time to develop certain kids because you have to win yesterday.
Yeah.
And asking you in a basketball situation where, Nebraska's still one of the few programs that doesn't have an NCAA tournament win.
Yeah, I didn't do any favors.
Right. Well, but do you like recruiting? Because basketball and football is such a vastly different recruiting because the amount of scholarships, players on the roster, it's just way different. Did you have those same kind of pressures recruiting, trying to get this thing to go to like, hey, I can get this thing to, you were so close.
We were close, and what I felt like was, so if you look at the way Tom Osborne built it, and Tom and I would have lunch on occasion, and I really learned a lot from him when he was my athletic director and when he wasn't. He hired me. And remind me about my story on Tom Osborne on my interview at the end.
Okay.
All right. So Tom Osborne, like, so he talked to me one time. We sat down and we talked about goals and we talked about reps. And he said our biggest advantage was we had a larger squad size, and my best guys got to go against other best guys, and we literally ran it like the old basketball camp, like it's a circuit,
stations,
stations, here, and I figured we were going to get about 30% more reps than the next guy, and that was just enough to make us that much better. Because just like if you're hitting golf balls, if you don't go out and practice, that's what I feel like I've hitting the ball longer and better, but you have to work at it, and you have to hit balls over and over and over if you want to be like, I see you all the time, and you're one of the best golfers in our state. You are, and there's a lot of them. I mean, I don't mean that there's not like 5, but there's more. But at the same time, it's hard to be in that category. But you're always practicing from 100 in. You are practicing a specialty, which you wouldn't expect a 6'6", 260-pound dude to have, right? You'd think it'd be Bam Bam with a big fucking club from Flintstones, right? So, but my point was, so you sit there and you say, okay, how do I build? And remember, at North Dakota State, 3 straight classes redshirt. So you've got all this continuity. And in basketball, the idea is to get old and stay old. Right, so we took Division I transfer that had to sit out, and we thought that really helped them, because when you have time to sit out a little bit, you just kind of get your act together. You're not. It's not such a whirlwind. When you're a freshman and in basketball, if you're going to play, like, first of all, there's a social thing going on. Second of all, you've got all this competition, and it's the most competition you've ever had in your life. High school certainly didn't provide that kind of competition. Even camps or traveling teams didn't. Like I said, imagine your best AAU team or your best 7-on-7 football team. Now add 3 more older guys to it. That's your college team. So you think, I played on my AAU team. Yeah, they're all the same age, dude. Like, these guys are men, okay? So it's different. And so now your head's like, you're trying to figure out who you are, where you fit in, how things go. They're on your case for the first time in your life about academics. If you've dealt with Dennis LeBlanc, you are going to get micromanaged. Dennis, I love you. I mean, we had problems to fix when I got here academically with the APR, and we fixed them. And Dennis was just the biggest part of that. But we had to help him too. We couldn't just ignore, like, it's fine, skip class. I mean, we had to punish some guys, and we sat guys out, and it hurt us at times in games. But my point is that, so you're trying to build this thing that happens over and over and over, and you want to get old and stay old, and in a society that wants everything in this microwave now, I want it now. Yeah. And I'm not saying fans I think are probably more patient than your athletes and the families of athletes, and the higher level you go, this higher expectation becomes like, hey, this is a career for me. Because let's just face it, if you're a tremendous athlete, your greatest income is going to happen within the first 5 years or 3 years after you're out of college, at your youngest and least prepared time in your life. Okay, so you have this window that's open, and the idea is, how quickly does that window slam shut, or can we keep that window open, that opportunity to make? Because really, if you're going to be a pro player, that's probably going to be your great. Like, Siobhan Shields is killing it right now. Ty Webster's done well. Teran Petaway's done well. So I don't know what Teran's plans are afterwards, but I'm not sure he's going to make $240,000 his first job. I bet you didn't. I didn't.
No.
So no,
I'm still trying to get there.
But my point is So you're trying to. So there's this monetary kind of pressure on the kid.
Right.
And it's not just the kid, it's families too. I had one parent tell me, "Hey, coach, this kid's my retirement." And I said to the man, I said, if I ever said that to my kid, I think I would puke.
That's a lot of pressure.
And I just said, I said, I understand you. We're trying to do the best we can, blah, blah, blah. The kid transferred. It just happens that way. There's certain mentalities that fit and don't fit. And so the pressure is, one, how do you retain the talent that you can accumulate? It's hard enough to get the talent. Now, for instance, Fred Hoiberg says, screw it. I'll take some high school kids. Everybody else is a transfer. I'm just taking transfers. I'm going to accumulate as much talent as I can and just figure it out. And my only concern there is, can you build a defensive system good enough in the Big Ten that allows for that kind of there's you have an ebb and flow on your team, so some guys leave from year to year, right? But you want this steady trajectory, right? You want as little bit of the wave as possible. And if people see there's a straight line, and you want that straight line. So these dips and raise, dip and raise like a wave on the thing. You don't want an EKG that's up, down, up. Like we're loaded, we're nothing. Right. And some of my teams, quite frankly, were like that. Sometimes because of injury, sometimes because of transfer, just whatever it was. My mistake, if I go back and look at it, our inability to make enough 3-point field goals was really our crux, so to speak, our problem. We had all the same numbers the year we went 13-5 in the league.
Was that 17-18 season?
My second to last season.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think we won 22 regular season games. And,
you were 13-5 in the Big Ten.
Yep. And our numbers, so we got fourth and Michigan State got first. Our numbers were a little better than Michigan State's in some areas, equal in others. Only one area was offensive efficiency. If you looked at our offensive 2-point field goals, they're fine. Getting the foul line, we're fine. Making threes, they shot 42% from the three. We shot like 34 or 35. They just made more. Is
that the way? I mean, I want to ask you, because basketball, your evolution of basketball from the time you started to where it is now. I mean, that's where it's totally gone, right?
You see Houston, right? They only take a layup or a three. You hear that over and over, and nobody likes watching it.
Right.
That's why I think the dimensions of the court are going to change.
Yeah.
They're going to make it a bigger court so that middle game comes back, so there's more motion and more sharing the ball. Because right now, the fact James Harden dribbles 37 times in 24 seconds, and never passes, but makes a three, a spectacular three. I mean, this guy's like a magician. But it's just, for the three unbelievable shots he makes, it just kind of gets boring, So, you can't dribble the life out of the ball and then expect people to come and watch and be happy and enjoy it. So I just think there's got to be changes, because you've got to move the line out. You've got to make it more difficult to make a three, to open up the rest of the game. We've taken the center out of the game. Doesn't even exist, hardly, And how can we bring him back to? Because it's just sad. Some of these big guys just have no chance. We'll have NBA guys come in, and I'm like, you like that kid? Yeah, well, 10 years ago I did.
Right.
But not now. If you can't stretch the floor and make the three. And, Brooks Lopez, I played against Brooks Lopez when I was at CSU and he was at Stanford. Robin and Brooks Lopez. Maybe I'm thinking of Robin, the guy for the Bucks. And he makes like 73s in a season. He couldn't make – Kawhi Leonard couldn't make a 12-footer when we played against him at San Diego State. Brooks Lopez didn't hardly make a free throw. And these guys are now cannon threes like it's – and I don't think they have this magic wand. They're getting the reps and they're letting the guys shoot it. And that just tells me that it needs to be moved out.
Interesting. That's one of the first people. They've slightly moved it out, but expanding the dimensions, that's
if you expand it anymore, you'll be standing out of bounds on the sides, right? No, you already are. They got such big feet; they're already barely in.
No, that's right. There are a few more questions. We've been going here for a little bit. I'm getting hungry. Maybe I had to go hit some golf balls to get warmed up, so we can go win this golf event we're about to play in. Best player you've coached against?
Oh, good question. That's a very good question. I'll tell you that one of the best coaches I've coached against. Two things. One, I'm going to say Bob Huggins did the best job of anybody of making in-game changes that you didn't expect. Like he'd play lineup, and it was relatively early in the year, 8 or 9 games. But usually you've seen every lineup by 8 or 9 games, right? But bench a guy, play small immediately. Instead of running their normal offense, went to like a secondary offense with that group and ran it like they'd run it all year. I'm like, holy cow, this guy is coaching circles around me. And we lose by 2, right? So I had the players is what I'm saying, but I didn't have me. So he was really good. So when I was a Division II coach, I loved to play against Don Meyer, who's at Northern State, which is my alma mater for grad school. Because, for instance, they would sub every dead ball. So every time there was an out-of-bounds play or a free throw, they'd throw 3 guys in the game. So you might play 40 seconds or a minute and a half. You know what I mean? So and what would happen would you'd be mad at a guy like, hey, you got to get the help and you know, blah blah blah. All of a sudden there's a new player in the game who's got him.
Right. It's chaos.
Yeah, it's chaos. And so like they get 6 or 8 points a game just because you're not matched up. You know, you're just there. Somebody's wide open. And so the subbing it was good for you because it put pressure on your team. And I would always love to play Michigan State early, even though we rarely did, because just the amount of athleticism and size. And if you weren't at the best, they were so used to taking people's best shots that they brought their best shot to you every night. Other teams weren't always like that. John Beeline, actually early, they were not very good defensively. And you always kind of felt like you had a chance. And then they got better and better defensively, where they were really good. And actually they had NBA concepts that the way they were rotating, and that we actually did our last 3 years too. But he was doing them a year before we were, and kind of forced us to have to do it. My point is, unbelievable stuff. Best player, the interesting thing about basketball are there are guys that go one and done, so you know they're good. Right. But like Trey Burke, we held him like 8 points. You know, I played against Paul George, and he had like 5 points. You know, when I was at CSU, I mean, didn't even show up.
He was a Fresno State guy, right?
Fresno State guy. Yep. And I tell you what, when you go to Fresno State and there's a police helicopter with lights following your bus to the gym, it's a little scary. Okay, so that happened, and you know, there's so many good players. The guy that probably crushed us, honestly, that hurt my feelings were the 2 guards. Melo Trimble hurt us. We had a chance to beat Maryland a few times, and he made just huge plays. And Cassius Winston just had 2 career highs against us the same season. And you're just like, are you kidding me with this? And you know, those guys were so tough. But you know, anybody, what you try and recruit and what you try and play, anybody that changes your defensive game plan or your offensive game plan, you know, are the best players, right? So you know, like, okay, on a shot blocker, like when you play Purdue, like we can't go in there, right? Like they're gonna block it, and they're not gonna block it with one guy. They might have 2 guys. So it changes how you have to play against them and what you do. Oh, we're gonna go right through him. Well, that works once, and then, you know, here's the one thing I know about Big Ten basketball. From the big guy, Jim Delaney. Games are going to last 2 hours. And the refs know it, and everybody knows it. So when you hear a coach complaining about calls, just check the game time. It's about an hour 58, or it might be 2:01, and they shut a lot of. Like, they're going to play in a TV window. Right.
So you're getting close. You're not getting any calls anymore.
Yeah. There it is, boys. Game time. They just, you know. And so there is just a no doubter right there. You know, that there is an impact there. And I, you know, so, you know, like they say, Delaney would come back with, like, you know, the average fouls was 19 a game in 1938, and it's 19 a game now. Well, yeah, because the conference commissioners have said to the refs, we get millions of dollars from the networks, we're playing on time. Right? We're not going 2.5 hours. So those are great players. And then, you know, great, and the Big Ten's full of great coaches. Bo Ryan, with no nonsense, felt simple. Couldn't beat him. You know, I mean, we beat him a few times, but just you'd be like, you know, like No Sit Sunday was an amazing day. And you probably weren't there for it. And Dominican Sue was. Mike Evans was. How about that?
Yeah, because him and Petaway
are buddies. Yeah. I had Mike Evans on campus at CSU and for basketball. Right. And he tip dunks one, shot missed. He grabs it, dunks it, and sticks his elbow in the rim and hangs on it like Vince Carter.
Right. And that's why he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. So
exactly.
He's a freak of nature.
So our guys are like, where's this? What JUCO is this guy from? I'm like, he's 17. He's not even 18.
Right, and he's going to go play Division I football at Texas A&M.
He said to me, Coach, I just think I can make the NFL before I can make the NBA. Guess he's highest paid receiver in the league. Guess who's right? Mike Evans.
Good call. So, best player you coached against. Who's the best player you've coached?
Yeah, that's like picking children now, okay? And you only have one, so you
can't do it.
Well, I go from school to school, and you know, I mean, like, so Glenn Watson was loyal when his entire recruiting class left on me, okay? And so I love him for that. You know, James Palmer and Isaac Copeland were tremendous. Roby was just the sweetest, most. He and I just had lunch the other day. He gave me one of his OKC jerseys.
Yeah.
You know, how do you know, I mean, just Benny Parker is a kid that I met with and said, Benny, I'm going to recruit over the top. Yeah, I think you should transfer. Is there a scholarship for me? Yeah, but you got to improve. Okay. Benny gave his heart and soul to this team and helped us to the NCAA tournament, and would do anything for us. And a guy like not. Never going to be all conference. There's just, and Pettaway was a. So the thing about Pettaway is that people have to understand is like he is. Palmer works, Watson works, those guys work, but he's the fiercest competitor with the best work ethic. Some guys are great competitors in practice, but they don't always put the work in. You know what I mean? And he would back it up. Like he could look you in the eye and say, "You're not holding up your end." And he was the guy already there at 6 and shooting till 6 p.m. again after practice. And he was just so obsessed with work. And I just felt so bad for him that 2015 season because we had some injuries. And then his mom was falling apart and dying versus cancer. Then the day we're going to announce he's going to the NBA was the day she died. So we had to delay that announcement. And it was just such a tough, difficult, sad story that, that's real life stuff. And, Craig Smith and I both spoke at her funeral. And they ran a youth football team, a youth baseball team, and a youth basketball team. The mom and dad did.
Wow.
They had, and they were like the Sharks, and they had the funny names, you know what I mean? And so the Hornets, the Galveston Hornets, they were, and so they were, it was just, and you would not believe the amount of people. She was also a community loan officer, and you talk about African American people, redlining, can you get a loan? She helped more people that didn't think they were ever gonna get a home loan and change their lives. That look, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, right? And so you've got this impactful person. It's not like, and moms, you only have one. Very few things in life you have one of. Mom and dad are one of them usually, and so to see a guy just she tried to get to games and she wouldn't be in good shape. That would mess him up. Like I remember she didn't come to a game. We played Wisconsin at home and lost by a few, and he played poorly, like 3 for 17, because he didn't realize she wasn't coming until she couldn't come, which was game day. And it's just tough. It was so tough. And his dad, Terry Pettaway, constable, elected official cop, first African American elected official cop. The other thing that our first African American basketball player at Nebraska was from Galveston. So Pettaway wore his number on. Oh wow! He wore 44 on a throwback night. Which was super cool. So there was a lot of things that they did to honor people, and they were honorable people. So to see that not go well was really, really heartache for me and heartache for I think our program, and so. I can just go down.
Well, you can't. You answered it perfectly. I mean, that's like, you can't. I mean, you've been around some phenomenal talent. I mean, what team was better, the 2014 or the 2018 team that you guys? I mean, because that wasn't bad. I mean, you guys were 4th in the Big Ten, all-time school wins.
So here's what I'll tell you about
one gets to the NCAA tournament, one doesn't.
Yeah, which they changed. Remember, they changed the rules on us. That was the first year of the net. And we caught a little bit of bad luck. Like we beat Minnesota when they were 14 in the country, which ended up being a quad 3 win.
Right, because then they fell apart later in the year.
Yeah, because they had a guy that got kicked off.
Yeah, because you guys played early December. You started playing Big Ten.
Yeah, and we beat their best team. Yeah. Then another guy, the kid playing for the Clippers right now, elected to have shoulder surgery. So he just elected out of the year.
Right.
Like, well, that doesn't help you. I mean, an NBA draft pick. But here's what I'll tell you. It'd be a hell of a game because of this. So that 14 team, what people have to remember, Seamus McKnight, whose birthday was yesterday.
Shout out to all the SIDs out there.
Yes. Yeah, they're cutting the SID departments. I think I saw worst thing.
I know.
Those guys are like historians.
Well, I mean Seamus, Keith Mann at Nebraska, they're all great people. Keith
athletic department. Don't do it.
Right.
Anyhow, so if I believe Seamus to be correct, and I do, I don't remember this, but we held 10 straight Big Ten teams under 40% from the field in 2014.
Wow.
So really what we did is we eventually got our act together defensively. We were an elite defensive team. You don't do that in the Big Ten. Home, away, home. So we became this elite defensive team, and that was our only niche. Like that's how we made it. Like we just got stops, and eventually somebody threw it in, or whatever it was. And you think about it, even the game we lost that year at home, Michigan throws in a half quarter. Derek Walton throws in a half quarter at halftime. And then we miss a free throw. Petaway misses a free throw, and we go down and we're in zone. And Leslie Smith takes a charge on Walton, clear charge. They give him an end one. That was the year before the charge circle. And like any of those two plays don't go our way, and we beat Michigan. I mean, and then the hard part with our second to last team was, so we lose on that last second shot or late clock shot to Kansas. When Mikhailu makes the corner three.
I was sitting right behind their bench.
And so both those teams were in the Final Four. So we lose by 2, and we split with Michigan, beat them by 19, lost by 17, or the other way around. But we're not good enough to make the tournament, and we beat half the Final Four, or we're right there with half the Final Four. So it's do you deserve it? Do you not? I know that team could have made it and could have been good. What's odd is lastly about the next year was, Copeland gets hurt and we tank it. We just can't. But what's funny about that is in that early December, we're at Minnesota, we're up 13. Copeland dunks it and hands the ball to a kid, and they call it technical.
Oh, I remember that.
So he gets his 4th. So I got to sit on him. And Brady Hyman comes in and does a good job. He gets 9 points, 10 rebounds, but they kind of score on him. Right? Because he's not ready.
Right.
So our lead goes from 11 down, blah, blah, blah. Then Dupree McBrayer just lost his mom, makes a 3. It's like, oh, we're dead, right? But Copeland had to sit for a long period of time. Rutgers, we're up 7, down 6, up 7. Well, we're up 11, and he gets the same thing. He gets a technical after a break, and it's like 17 minutes left in the game. We're up 7, 8, or 9. So it's early, but now we got to manage his foul trouble. He fouls out early, we lose. So every time Copeland got in this weird foul trouble, we kind of collapsed. Lost at big lead at Minnesota, lost at Rutgers, and everybody's like, "What's the problem?" And I didn't realize that until about 3 games after he was out. Is that nobody else really did. He was a very admirable guy in the huddle. He's got kind of an elegant way about him, and not to say that I wish somebody else got hurt, but he was a bad guy to get hurt, I think, for that team. But I tell you, I'd never had more fun those last 6 or 7 games of my life when we came back and beat, Iowa at home, and then who won in the NCAA tournament later. We beat Maryland, who won in the NCAA tournament, and my wife. Funny story is that Bill Moose had not been to a game that I recall. Maybe Creighton when we got Creighton. But hadn't been to a road game maybe since. And my wife says, there's a big announcement that, like Sipler, one of those guys, puts it. Bill Moose is going to the IU game, the Indiana game. And we just lost a couple league games. And my wife's like, "You're getting fired. Like, if you don't win that game, you're getting fired." And the first thing she says is, "Clean out your Adidas account." so I bought like fuchsia, purple, blue. And I just want you to, thank you, Adidas, and thank you, Nebraska.
You're rocking me. You got Yeezys on.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we had a blast coaching in Nebraska, and I've had a blast doing this with you. And fun. It was such a cool run. I hope to get another job. The broadcasting thing's fun.
$3.99.
Yep. Oh. Who quits at $3.99?
No
I have
one.
399 career wins. I'm in the grayscale under 400. So I can't quit yet. And I appreciate you having me on.
No, it'll be great. That was awesome. Let's go play some good golf.
I'm in.
All right.
Thanks, Jay.
A Hurrdat Media Production.